So we get a small delay, like one block, but considering how to supercode to the mother for the user, but we need it super efficient to making sure that the collection itself and the protocol is not transferred. So that will make for vertical objects, it's more expensive than the previous one, because here you can do that's for specific gap. So every product was the main place, but it's not something that will be known, as mentioned before. We're not adopting. So one of the more sexy DeFi protocols in the past 2 weeks or 3 weeks that we developed, you can check it out with DeFi. So guys who leverage private open accounts. We also provide our infrastructure for a suite of protocols. We are in the final stage preparing solutions for protocols such as Pulsar or Arbitrary and Intel that you might know fairly well. So these guys actually December last year experienced price valuation, and they came down and said, hey, you're paying for everything more. How do you solve that problem? And we use your hands, sit down with the developers, we created a dedicated solution with non-security tax, so we are very much aware of
Nice.
Musst du für alle Getränke zahlen? Weird. Und du willst einen großen Chili haben und nicht hinten auf dem Tisch? Ah, okay. Ja. Du hast nachher ein paar Fotos-Videos zwischendurch gemacht für ein paar Taschen. Damit du am Lama bist, was du denkst. Ich
So, go to the end of the presentation, then we bring up one of the use cases, like doing a use case both enterprise and analyzer. So, how the model works. You can deploy like regular on Apple or something else that needs to put some collateral to manage one apps. On the other hand, you have a tool to manage to say the borrowing. And all of that is put into a single smart contract. One smart contract is for a user, and it's called like a account account, where you can take one X or one play. So if you put in one AVAX, you can go up to 5 AVAX, right? So the regular thing would be, okay, that doesn't make sense. I just run out, I put one AVAX, I run out AVAX and that, however, you can do that.
Close enough.
And both always look at your health factors, if you feel a second health factor is liquidated. What you can do with this money, so imagine you go with 3 AX to the 4 AX, you can build various protocols that you guys integrated.
Rick, right? Yeah. Hi. Hey, nice to meet you. I'm taking a backup live. I'm going to rip from work. I don't think anyone's going to touch my stuff. Just keep an eye on it. I'm going to go grab one real quick. Yeah, but I don't think anyone's going to touch it. And I was talking with the CEO of Enterprise, and he explicitly said, Marcin, but for Retro, our model would never be so efficient as it is right now. Maybe it be possible, but for sure not so efficient. So this is actually these are the hands. And one thing I also want to shift slightly is people also come to the action and organize. It's also like a huge effort for Shannon from November, because she helped us with the presentation last year. This year we end August to be September, so I would very much like to So this is all the presentation. I think we have 3 minutes. What's up? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you these apps I was talking about earlier. You can see over here that there's 4,000 assets. And you also can connect to the forecast. You can store exchanges in the US. You get Forex. really very focused or something that I don't have everyone to change. As the workers, we can change the colors of building and they're trying out. We've got grades, we've got energies, commodities, you name it. And this is the lens score I was talking about. If you want to go to study the lens or lens score on this, you can see how much status is the lens has been giving up more and more score in this particular sense. Alright, then when it comes to the scope and the rest of the finance, you can see a huge ecosystems that are integrated with. It's not all, but it's a very key. So for example, we reckon my knowledge and a deal contract on purely investment material, we get these best prices in patents and sending a transaction to purely eat together with my transaction to call data, the price is attached. And then from the smart contract, these prompted agreements go to what we believe. So I give you prices, the transaction is sent, and then you have to display the book number, the timestamp, and then the prices you deliver. And then sample prices, so sure it's easy and so on. You can check it with all of the other ecosystems over here. And here we can see this is for socket, this is not again, so the flow works the same, however there are some slight changes underneath. And last but not least, maybe I'll show you this is Delta. So basically I would have to switch to Avalanche. But you can see how much you power goes to Quadra, and it goes to various tokens and
I messed with it and now
you can see that right now I have a position here with more than your account. So here it calculates the API that I count to here's my growth factor, so 40% is 0. And anyone can see that I have a forward position of 200 USDC. And I went to odds, and for example, this is 65 and 2% peak, and it says forward. So right now, current API is between 23% and 7,000%. Has been way higher. But basically the probabilities of starting are really
solid. That's a good shot.
Half a minute left, so maybe see the speaking. It is very to results. But here I'm going to see the history part of pricing for Ethereum for last hour. So this is all I wanted to convey to you guys. Thanks for everyone that hasn't been asleep. And if you have any questions, please you can contact me after the course. Thank you.
Enjoy. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, is that yours? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do like a little side live stream for him real quick.
Lights.
And I did not prepare for this at all.
Very bright lights. And so, yeah, I saw HOPR for last year, very 8 minutes. An hour and a half, that's a lot.
Hello, hello. Hello, and welcome everyone. My name is Sebastian. I'm founder of HOPR. This is my third time at ETH Denver, and I'm exceptionally excited to be here. Probably the most excited I've been. Now, it's been 3 years that we've been working on HOPR, and today's the first time that we are actually going to launch the first commercial product on top of HOPR. And yeah, I'm going to talk about that, and I'm very much looking forward to this workshop. Before we dive into what we're building though, let me start with a quick recap for the ones who are not familiar with what we're building, with what this infrastructure of HOPR actually is. So the HOPR network Let me try to start this short video here. So the HOPR network is basically allowing you to transmit data privately and securely. So you can use it for any type of data exchange between two parties on the internet. You might be wondering, well, what is different from HOPR compared to other solutions? An important thing is we focus on metadata, right? So what we do is the HOPR protocol is actually breaking down packets into individual little pieces that look indistinguishable from one another. And then they're being sent through a large network of data relayers. That's where the name HOPR kind of comes from. And each node is mixing up these packets. That's why it's also called a mix. Provides transport level privacy. So if you want to check that out, you can go on hoprnet.org/protocol and find out more about what this protocol actually does. It's incentivized, so we have a payment channel implementation where the individual node runners who are relaying data packets for others are earning HOPR tokens when they can provide a proof that they worked honestly. So that's kind of a unique innovation of HOPR, and it's what we call proof of relay. Now, this sounds a little bit abstract, and I know many people here are into like DeFi and NFTs and stuff, so I'm gonna take you through a practical example. Before I get started, can I get some hands up on what sort of wallet users we have in the room? Who here is primarily using MetaMask? Hands up. Okay, that's a lot of people. Who here is using Block Wallet? Yay, privacy friends. Thumbs up, good job. Who here is using Rabbi? Okay. Well, I'm gonna show Rabbi today a bit then. Rabbi is underrepresented here. Who's using Frame? Okay, a little bit of Frame love in the room, good. All right, so what I'm gonna show you is first some awareness for where Ethereum wallets today are leaking private information that might not be so obvious to some folks here in the room. So we built a tool called Derp, and if you want to play along, you can totally do that. You can take out your laptop. It's going to be more fun on a laptop than on a phone, although in principle it probably works out on a phone as well. You navigate to derp.hoprnet.org. And what Derp is basically a proxy that relays your Ethereum requests that your wallet is exposing to RPC providers. And what we set out to do here is to really visualize what is going on in your wallet under the hood. So I'm going to walk you through this setup here. And as I said, I'm going to show Rabbi here today, just because I think it's a nice wallet that is very clean and has a focus on privacy as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up Derp. So Derp is basically visualizing these RPC requests on any EVM chain. So since we're friends of Gnosis and the Gnosis ecosystem, I'm gonna show how to use this on Gnosis chain. So I'm gonna copy this RPC URL. So you see it's basically a custom URL, just like any other. And then I'm going ahead in Rabbi. So I've set up my Rabbi wallet, but again, this works on any wallet, including MetaMask. I'm going to add a custom RPC, and I'm going to configure it for Gnosis chain. So as soon as I do that, you see this table, which was initially empty down here, is populated with metadata. Now, the second I connected, I didn't actually use my wallet yet, right? I just configured the RPC endpoint. We see that it did already a bunch of requests, and you're saying, yeah, okay. It needs to know which chain it is on. It needs to know its time, right? Of course, it checks the block number and so on. But already now, you see a bunch of information that discloses personal things about me. Like, it tells you, I happen to be in Denver. You see my IPv6 here. You see the individual requests are being sent from a user agent that discloses I'm using, some Linux system and something about my browser. And, many of you might say, hey, I don't really care so much. It's going to get worse than this. So let's actually start using the wallet, because again, all this is exposed to your RPC provider before you actually start using your wallet. So again, by the way, none of what I say here is meant as a dunk on Rabbi. Rabbi is an excellent wallet. This is something that is intrinsically happening in any EVM chain, and in fact in most peer-to-peer networks out there. So we're talking about fundamental privacy issues, and yeah, we set out to change those, and I'll get to that in the next session. So in Rabbi, I have a wallet connected. It's the HOPR Dev Bank. We use this to fund accounts as we go ahead, and you see, as soon as I clicked on the wallet, there's a bunch more requests being sent out. So as a first demo, I'm just going to send some XDAI to myself. It's a bit pointless, but just to make it cool. So I'm also a bit cheap, that's why I sent myself 0.1 US dollar cent. Now, this is kind of interesting, right? So before I send this transaction, there's a bunch of further requests that are being sent. First of all, there's this ETH get code. Why does Rabbi do that? Well, Rabbi does that because it wants to find out who are you sending money to. Are you sending money to an EOA or a smart contract? In this case, it found out, well, there's no code on this address, so therefore I can submit this transaction with a default 21K gas. The next one that it does is it does the get transaction count on my address because that's required for the transaction, right? If you want to format an Ethereum transaction, you need to know the nonce, and that's why it queried that one from the RPC provider. So at this point, I've not done any Ethereum transaction, but the RPC provider knows already my IP address. It knows some things about my computer, and it can link that to my Ethereum address. And I find it pretty profound, even though nobody talks about this. Why? Imagine you're doing everything right. So you're using a hardware wallet, right? You're using maybe even a multi-sig, like something that knows is safe. You might use different devices, right? You have like your proper hardcore device, which you use for these transactions that you only do very rarely. Chances are you use it from home, right? And chances are you're on the same Wi-Fi network, connected to the same router as your, random/fund aping around account. Now these two accounts are linked, and the primary identifier is actually not your ENS. I'm a big fan of Tornado and proper on-chain privacy solutions, but the primary identifier that people are going to use is going to be your IP address. Your IP address is the primary identifier that tracks and links your accounts as you move across the Web 2 and Web 3. And that is a fundamental issue. Okay, so finally, let me sign this transaction. So we'll see what happens here. So the final step that was just missing is the send raw transaction. So I just, send a transaction on Gnosis chain. And we see everything that happens under the hood here. By the way, another reason that I use Rabbi, not some other wallets, is Rabbi is pretty clean. It doesn't send like a shit ton of requests out all the time. You see, it only does what it actually ought to do in order to function properly. Now, to make this a bit more interesting, beyond this, blatant linkability between my Ethereum account and my IP address, I'm going to do some DeFi. So I'm going to spread some sushi love here. I'm going to use SushiSwap. And so I'm going to go ahead and switch like 1 cent of XDAI for GNO. And just to see what's going on, I'm going to put this next to each other. So the last thing that was sent in my Rabbi wallet was this transaction to myself. Okay, cool. Now, let me initiate a swap here. At this point, there's a bunch more things going on. This is interesting, right? So what's happening here? It's an ETH estimate gas. Let me make this a bit bigger. This is an ETH estimate gas. Like, I know there's many Ethereum people here in the room, so there's nothing new, right? Why does it need to do it? Because the damn wallet needs to find out how much does it cost what Sebastian does. But let's look at this from a privacy angle. Before I send a transaction, I disclosed a whole lot about myself. I disclosed, for example, from where I'm about to do something and to where I'm sending a transaction. Let's check this one out on Gnosis Scan. So what's going on here? Unsurprisingly, this is the SushiSwap router, right? Okay, so the RPC provider at this point knows that Sebastian from address 0x24 something is going to use Sushi Swap. But of course, it doesn't stop there, right? So let's look at this function ID. By the way, one super useful website is this 4-byte directory, which allows you to kind of decrypt like this function identifier. And we see this as a swap exact ETH for tokens. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to swap the native asset to some token, okay? And again, all that information is available to the RPC provider before I made the transaction. All right, so that reveals a bit about me. Now, let's see what else is going on here. So I see something back here that does look like suspiciously like an Ethereum address, right? So let's check out this address. What's going on here? Oh, this is the WXDAI token, right? The wrapped XDAI token. Okay, so now RPC provider knows I'm going to spend some XDAI on Sushi. What else? Here's another thing that looks suspiciously like an Ethereum address here. Let's check out that one. And again, pretty much totally unsurprisingly, this is the GNO token on Gnosis chain. So you know everything that I'm about to do on this chain before I made a transaction, right? So maybe there's some searchers here in the room. That's information which gives you proprietary insights to front run the mempool. So you can say, hey, you know, again, these RPC providers, I trust them, and that's fine. You know, I don't think that Infura and Alchemy are bad guys, but I don't think this is the trust assumption that we should build the Web3 on. More importantly, there's extremely smart folks at Infura, but also at other projects such as Pocket Network, working on decentralizing this RPC stack. If there's now a random dude on the internet, are you going to trust them with that information that I just disclosed here? Now that we've seen that, you know, basically MEV is $1 billion industry, that's pretty juicy information that you can actually use to front run the mempool. So my punchline here is, and I know I've been dragging this on, transport privacy is a fundamental issue that needs to get fixed to have the Web3 safe and secure for everyone, but also to really enable us to use these amazing, truly decentralized applications that very smart folks are working on. All right, so since that is an issue, what can we do to make it better? What can we do to make things better? So, and at this point, let me make this full screen. I would like to introduce to you RPCH as the only private blockchain gateway. So what we're announcing here for the very first time is an RPC provider that is provably private. Yeah? So, and I know that there's a bunch of folks that try to build something that's a bit more private by proxying RPC requests. What I'm talking about here is leveraging the HOPR network, this packet relay infrastructure, in order to build actually truly hardcore private RPC services for any wallet out there. So, just as an overview, you've seen this demo here on Derp. That's what we seek to improve, right? So, effectively, we want to open a new dimension in this RPC space from, you know, just being centralized to decentralized. We want to make this private, right? So, how does it work to make this a bit bigger? So, on the one hand side, you have your favorite crypto wallet. Your favorite crypto wallet is now augmented by an SDK of RPCH. Now you might wonder, why do we need this? Well, we need this because the underlying transport infrastructure is not HTTP, which again uses basically TCP/IP. It uses the HOPR mixnet. So unfortunately, wallets don't talk HOPR natively. And that's why, and that's something that I will show next, we need a connection infrastructure between your wallet and this HOPR network. And the same thing on the other side. We have this exit node, and the exit node is then kind of taking this payload, forwarding it to some Ethereum nodes, and sending the response back. And in that way, we have entirely decoupled your wallet from the RPC provider, not just by a single VPN or a single proxy in between, but by multiple in-between nodes that decouple your IP address from on-chain information. Cool, so let's look at how this works in practice. So I'm gonna try to access RPCH here. So there's two options how we can use RPCH today. This is not a demo that works at some point. You can literally try this right now yourself. So the simple way is, I'm going to go first to the more interesting way, because I know this is a dev event, so let's check out the way to use RPCH on any wallet, on any EVM chain. So what you're going to do is you're going to download a Docker container, and this Docker container has an API secret. For now, this thing is totally free of charge. So I don't care if you troll me and just screen cap the secret here. And I'm going to run this Docker container, which is this connection element that I mentioned before, which on the one hand speaks HOPR, and on the other side exposes a standard Ethereum RPC server locally on your computer, so that your MetaMask, your Tally, your Frame, your whatever wallet you're used to can connect to. Now, I'm just gonna paste this in here. You don't need to see too much in here. I'm just gonna demo what it does. So since I have been running this on my computer already, it doesn't download the container if you run it for the first time. Otherwise, it would download the Docker container and install it. So it might take, for you guys who want to try this out, it might take a few seconds longer. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to Rabby. And the other thing I still have open here on my Rabby is derp, right? So we see these requests which Rabby was sending to an RPC provider. And what I want to show now is that when I connect Rabby to the same RPC endpoint but through RPCH, we won't see any further requests. So let's see if this works. So what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to use the default provider, which is suggested here, but I'm going to use exactly the same provider that we had before, this derp provider, which I've been using there. So I'm going to go into Rabby again, custom RPC, and I'm going to prefix it basically. So what we do here is we basically run, you see this HTTP localhost 8080, so that is the Docker containers exposing an Ethereum RPC provider on port 8080, and we pass it the exit provider. And the exit provider is the one who actually serves your Ethereum requests, right? And again, it's exactly the same thing what we've been using before, but now it's being relayed through multiple intermediate HOPR nodes. Cool, so I added that one, and we keep a close eye here. So it was checking some last chain ID. Oops, Rabby come back. So custom RPC, yeah, this is prefixed properly. So let's see if this worked. Wish me luck. I'm going to copy my address again. I'm going to start with the same lame example of just sending myself some funds. And now what's going to happen is this request here, we see there's nothing popping up, right? At this point, there was already kind of an ETH estimate gas and stuff like that. And what we actually see happening here is there's a whole bunch of things that, we can't quite understand happening in my terminal here. What's going on? This is basically just some debug logs. It's maximally verbose here that is relaying these requests through HOPR nodes. So let's see if this works. I'm gonna sign this transaction, and it's gonna send now, like again, through multiple nodes, it's gonna send a transaction. And yeah, so I just made the first actually private Gnosis chain transaction using Rabby wallet with RPCH. So, cool. Very happy that I first one worked. Thank you guys. Okay, I'm 50% less nervous now, so let's go for some more interesting example. I'm, by the way, gonna shut down my container here, and I'm gonna start it again with a little bit, like you can in the debug flag here, you can set what you want to filter. I'm just gonna filter some of these very spammy commands out there. So we're gonna see a bit less stuff going on here. Okay, so let's go back to sushi. How about some private sushi? So I'm gonna again swap some XDAI for GNO. I'm gonna swap it, and we keep this open and keep a bit of an eye what happens down there. I'm gonna swap it. So there's the first request going out, right? So what was it doing? It was doing an ETH get balance. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was sad. I'm gonna try that again. Yeah, so it did an ETH get transaction count, it did an ETH get balance that went through here. So we're doing some estimate gas. Cool, that worked. We see an updated gas price that was delivered. We see this big payload of my signed transaction. And yeah, my signed transaction was submitted. Yes, cool. Let's see if that worked. Yay, I swapped some XDAI for GNO. Nice. So let's take a quick look of what happened here. We see that it received a request. So this was the request going out, right? So this is now the endpoint, taking my request for ETH get transaction receipt. It sent a payload along. And this payload is entry and encrypted for the recipient node here. So that's why this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to us now. And eventually we should see a response. Yes, this is the response down here. And you see the typical response of an ETH get transaction receipt, which is this here. Let's compare 0xF68, F68 indeed. Unsurprisingly, that is the transaction hash, which is actually being sent. Cool. Nice. Now, this was using RPCH, using Rabi wallet. Again, this can work on any Ethereum wallet, on any EVM chain, because basically, we are a bit opinionated here to the Ethereum RPC specs, but we're interested in going beyond that and potentially next looking at what happens in the Cosmos ecosystem and see what's going on there, because privacy is something that is not just needed for Ethereum. Cool. So this was a bit quirky, right? So this is like this Docker container is a bit painful. You might not want to trust my Docker container here. I totally understand that. So let's look at the more normie-friendly way of using privacy on Ethereum. So the second way you can interface RPCH today is through Block Wallet. Huge shout out to our friends at Block Wallet who have been working with us on this very quirky first release to get this in there. So really appreciate that. Now, in Block Wallet, you have two options. You can download it off of Chrome Web Store. So again, this is something that for all our moms and dads and whoever our non-native crypto folks works. I have that one already installed. So you can install this Block Wallet RPCH experimental version. If you don't trust us, because in the end this is a crypto wallet, you shouldn't trust us. You can also download it from GitHub, right? So you can download our fork here of this RPCH clone and also of Block Wallet and look at it yourself, do your audit, and then load the unpacked extension in Chrome. I'm a Brave fan because again, privacy, right? So you can unload that here. So let me show that quickly as well. You see I have a bunch of wallets in here. I'm going to disable Rabi, and I'm going to start the experimental version of Block Wallet. And let's see how that one looks like. So I configured it with the same DAFbank account. Now this one is not going through my Docker container. I said this is the more normie-friendly way to interface RPCH. So I'm going to just shut down my Docker container here. So what we're going to look at instead is, that's something that I find really cool in Chrome extensions. You can look at the service worker that works in the background. And we'll check out what's going on here with this Block Wallet extension. So this keep alive request is just something that the extension does by itself. And as soon as we start doing something, it's going to get quite busy here. So let's look at it. So we see we're hitting some messages endpoint. Okay, that looks interesting. What is going on here under the hood? So what happens under the hood is, you remember in this architecture overview, I told you that we have this connector inside your wallet that's this RPCH SDK that connects you to the HOPR network. And that talks HOPR, so to say. So it talks to the HOPR entry node. And talking to the HOPR entry node, it sends end-to-end encrypted payload. And this payload, you might remember from the video that I showed all the way in the beginning, I said we break payload down into indistinguishable little packets. And we can see exactly that here in the browser console. Let's look at this request. It's a bit small, let me try to make it bigger. Yeah, so what is this? Just like a very brief intro into the message format that we use for encapsulating the RPC payload. The first one here is just random ID, so that the recipient knows which pieces belong together. The third parameter just tells it how many individual packets belong to one request, and then it's just a counter, right? So this is the first packet, and the next one is going to be the second packet. And then it's just like a bunch of hex encoded payload, which we don't understand because again it's end-to-end encrypted. And the next thing that you see is you see the recipient, and this is the HOPR address of that node, which forwards the exit node to the actual Ethereum node. And what we see is that this request went to some HOPR node that starts on 4v, and the next request goes to a different one. Yeah. So even though that was very technical, I just want to take it. The take-home message here is this is way more private than a VPN or a proxy, because for every single request, you're switching up the nodes through which you're sending it. Yeah, so that's why RPCH is already today in its first alpha version way more private than existing solution that you might be used to today. Yeah, so that was a quick demo here. Actually, let me also demo on this one here a quick sushi swap. So I don't know how Sushi deals with rugging the wallet and injecting a different wallet. Well, seems to be doing well. Good. I'm gonna scroll down here. We're gonna see this one getting probably a bit busy. I'm gonna swap again 0.01 XDrive for GNO. Yeah, we see a ton of requests being fired off because now again it does all the dance, right? Like get the gas price, get the nonce, and so on. Confirm it. Now again, this one takes a bit longer because of this multi-hop infrastructure that we're running here. And waiting for confirmation. I'm just blaming it on Gnosis chain. Yeah, that was not so successful, huh? I'm gonna try that again. So it might be every now and then that as more and more people connect to the entry nodes, that these entry nodes get quite some load. And then, in this early alpha version where we don't have a ton of entry and exit nodes, that there's some load issues with that. Transaction is pending. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm just going to check out this account on, oh, it seemed that one did work. Yeah, cool. It did receive some GNO in exchange. So check that one out. Yeah. All right, so that was a brief demo of how to use RPCH on Block Wallet or using Docker, whatever you prefer. And with that, I would hand it over to my co-founder Rick, who will tell you a few things on how you can use that and what other great things you can do with RPCH. Let me just try to find my slides back. So by the way, before handing it over, of course, there's a POAP. So please scan this RPCH launch event POAP. And over to Rick.
Thank you, Sebastian. Don't worry, he'll be back in 10 minutes. Good, so thank you very much for this part. While you scan your POAP and claim it, and you're going to be amongst the first 1,000 developers on planet Earth who A, saw the demonstration, and B, have the opportunity to use it by yourself. What are you able to do now? You're the developers of the Web3. You're the forefront of what's coming next. You're deciding what the billion users are going to use in the next time. So that's the reason why you are able to not only try out this early alpha version by yourself, and also, hey, it would be lovely if you give us feedback, test it, and tell us where the quirks and the problems currently are. We tried it on various wallets, but of course, the more people help us support, try it out, get private transactions currently for all the developers, no matter if you use it via block wallet on Gnosis chain or via Docker, it's all for free. Have fun, test it, and enjoy the ride of a truly private transaction, and be one of the first 1,000 people to use it. But you're also able to do, and that would be truly amazing, if you would send a GitHub issue to your wallet. Everyone here has a preferred wallet. Everybody loves a wallet a little bit more than the other one. Why don't support a true private transaction, which they will build in for you in order to use it on a daily basis? Or, even better, come with us to Istanbul. What we're doing here in end of April, there's going to be the first Ethereum conference around privacy, and HOPR is going to sponsor people who are integrating RPCH into various wallets. They'll get the hotel and the accommodation for free. And why not suggest this to your favorite wallet? Tell them that you're going to integrate it with your friends into the wallet and then use it on a daily basis. Tell your wallets what's possible. How many developers do we have here today? Who's developing? Cool. Who is working for a wallet? Love you. Cool. Good. So we're talking a little bit about the commercial part, then we're talking quickly where RPCH comes from, and then Sebastian is going to talk to you about the roadmap and what's coming up. So the pricing. RPCH is a version which is for enterprises. We are offering all the wallets out there the opportunity to offer this one to their customers. And we're not only talking about all the wallets, we're also talking about DeFi protocols in general. Sushi, and you name it. This means that this is our core focus on developing RPCH for the future in order to make it for all the DeFi protocols and projects out there easy to integrate RPCH and use it. But there's a side effect to it, which might be interesting to one or two of you. If you are able to offer your customer a premium service, and you're not only offering your customer, hey, we're better than the other wallets, and there's 136 decentralized wallets out there with approximately 7 million users. Why don't you suggest your premium service to your customer for a fee? You as a wallet are able to gain money. Because how many of the developers here are using a wallet and they're using a VPN? Who is using wallet transactions and uses VPN? Do you see these are all people who are currently paying for a freaking VPN service? Why don't have a dedicated service which is much better straight in your DeFi protocol, straight in your wallet? It's much user-friendly, it's better safety and security, and it's total privacy for all your users. It's not only a USP for the wallets, it's going to make Web3 better. And this is what we set out here. And of course, for all our degens and developers who are here, you're able to use, until end of March, minimum, the RPCH service for free. Try it out, give us feedback. We're thankful for every feedback we're giving. Remember, this is an alpha version. It's not a version which is out there since years. Today was the launch event where Sebastian did it live on stage. And we're not focusing on the crypto end users, we're focusing on experts and enterprises. So, where does RPCH come from? If we go a little bit back to what HOPR is a layer 0 transport layer, which is enabling 100% full stack privacy. So there's all the amazing on-chain privacy projects out there, all the CK projects, which are truly amazing. But what's missing in order to have 100% full stack privacy and a truly resilient Web3 ecosystem is how do you send these data from A to B? And therefore, you should have something like HOPR. You should have a mixnet, which is hiding your metadata, such as your IP address. And RPCH is only the first project of all these projects which might come. Why RPCH? if you think of what's most important in the Web3 ecosystem, what is like your shoes when you go on the street, or when you take an aircraft when you go to the next continent. The most important thing for the Web3 ecosystem are wallets. No matter if you buy or sell a token, if you swap something, if you're voting for something, if you delegate rights, no matter what you do on the blockchain, you need a wallet. The wallet is the most important infrastructure part of the entire Web3 ecosystem in order to do anything on the chain. Now, we believe if we are able to make all these transactions truly safe and private, that only you decide who are you disclosing your transactions and not, then we're walking into a direction where the Web3 just became a lot more resilient. And this is one of the core values of the Web3 ecosystem. So RBCH is helping all the wallets to make their transaction private, and therefore hopefully grow the Web3 ecosystem into a stable future. We had this idea in September. Then we were drafting, then we had the first UX Web3 hackathon, how MetaMask calls it, with Francesco from Consensus in Zurich, where we had amazing designers in a hackathon in order to think about how could we integrate RBCH into MetaMask. Will the users pay? Will the wallet pay? Will there be a different system? Will it be a pay per transaction model? So we first started with an outline together with MetaMask in order to think about how could we use the service. After we had the first drafts done, and yes, some are not as nice as our marketing material, we of course went to DEF CON and we participated as sponsors in the small hackathon, Infinite Hackathon, which was happening during DEF CON in Bogota. And you can see that Steve was working day and night in order to get the stuff ready, in order to start working on the first idea with Block Wallet, Frame, and Tally together in order to set up RBCH. Here you can see the three guys which have been coding for us as a team together, and as every lucky story usually starts, yes, they did a fantastic job. That's the reason why we offered them jobs in the RBCH team. So these three guys, Diego, Camilo, and Luis, are now working together with Steve, and now we have Martins, another DevOps, who's worked together on that project in order to bring RBCH from the alpha version to the beta version and to everybody out there. And yeah, this is how usual business now looks like. They've been working really day and night in the last 2 weekends consecutively in a row in order to make this happen. It's really amazing to see that the team is so motivated. So thank you very much for the entire RBCH team for making this happen. And this is where it ends at the end of the day. We're still HOPR. We're still going in the direction of growing and making the Web3 ecosystem more resilient. But what it helps for HOPR is we are bringing sustainable protocol revenue to HOPR. And this is important because at the end of the day, we need to pay the rent, we need to pay the people. They deserve their money because they're doing a great job. We're paying insurances. We need to pay the stuff. But in order to bring protocol revenue to HOPR, RBCH is the first product. And what do you think? If you look on CoinGecko, you have a little bit more than 12,000 projects out there who are listed. How many of these projects already have protocol revenue? 10, 100, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 6,000? Guess.
15.
15, 20, 3. Come on, 12,000. Okay, good. So here is a little projection. Of course, Ethereum is the number one. Then you have various chains. And yeah, so our projection is that we're going to be amongst the top 100 who will deliver protocol revenue by mid this year. And yes, currently there's 94 projects out of 12,000 who do have sustainable monthly revenue. And this is the moment where I hand over to my beloved founder, Sebastian, in order to tell you a little bit more about the roadmap.
Thank you, Rick. So yeah, protocol revenue is a big thing because if it's not protocol revenue, it's going to be revenue for JP Morgan. So I'd be happier if that goes to decentralized networks. Now, for the ones who have claimed their POAP, I don't know. Okay, I'll try to do this one-handed. The last thing I wanted to show you is to just walk briefly through the roadmap, through what's coming up for RPCH. So we've seen that this first alpha version is, in a quirky way, available to the more technically capable folks, like all of you here in the room. Our normie friends will probably have a bit of hard time this far, unless they're happy to use Block Wallet on Gnosis chain, that is. So, the roadmap of what's coming next is, let's first start with what we have already today, right? So what are the components that we have this far? We have the SDK that's integrated into Block Wallet and in a Docker container. We have this connector that I showed. We have entry and exit nodes. And these entry and exit nodes this far are exclusively operated by us. Why? Because I didn't want to crash this to crash even worse than it did this far. So that's the next step. In the beta version, we will have third-party node operators, which will be entry and exit nodes in this network. And the other thing is we have a centralized funding service. So as I mentioned, behind the scenes, the HOPR network is incentivized, but these incentives right now go through a centralized funding platform. So in the beta version of the next release, please don't ask me for timelines. We will have anybody of you who wants to run a HOPR node can be an entry and an exit node, and earn returns for providing services to wallet users like all of us. We will have what we call an honesty score. So you might have seen somewhere in my debug logs that every now and then there were some. Look for that one. There were some failed requests, right? So for example, from this node, 6 of the packets were delivered successfully. Like there were 0 where they tried to cheat, that's good, but 2 were just dropped. And package drop is something that happens in decentralized networks way more frequently. So that's why we have a scoring system where the client itself, without relying on a centralized scoring service, can itself decide on what's actually correct. And finally, in the next version, we will have multi-hop routes. So in this current route, you have only an entry and an exit node, which directly communicate with one another. Like for the next releases, we will add multiple intermediate hops. Again, the reason that we don't do that this far is because we want to launch this in a somewhat useful fashion. Already in this very limited alpha version of RPCH, we are, as we've seen, way more private than RPC providers today, including your VPN. But yeah, it's only going to get way more private from where we are here. And ultimately, the long-term goal is, of course, to make this trustless. We should not rely on centralized platforms like the funding service that we have in place or the discovery platform. This is information that your wallet has to be able to establish itself. It's a long road to get there. We have a ton of plans on light client verification, on ensuring that the underlying system is secure, and yeah, lots of work left to make the Web3 private for all of us. One last project that I wanted to point out that we worked at HOPR is also on the consensus layer. Also, unfortunately, the Ethereum consensus layer is not very private. So we worked on a project to analyze and point out an attack vector that allows you to de-anonymize Ethereum validators today. So one next goal that I guess I can alpha lead for HOPR is we want to not just make Ethereum wallets more private, we also want to make the consensus layer more private. Just as an outlook for where we're headed here. I want to thank you so much for coming here. Again, I'm tremendously proud to show off the work that our entire team and our community has been working on for the past 3 years. And if there's any questions, Rick and me are happy to take them after the session over here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Denver.
Can you put the POAP back?